I'm hard on you men. I admit that I am. I'm hard on men because we don't get it. You know, when it comes to certain things, we don't get it because we don't practice like you women do. You understand that women use like 5 to 8,000 words a day, and men use 1,400, and usually 1,396 before they see you again. They save like 4 words for you guys, like dinner, remote, and the two I know you wait for all day long. Hey, baby. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, trust me, that's not true. Um, where's Spirit? Spirit, thank you so much for introducing me tonight. I appreciate that. And Dean Rutherford, thank you for putting all of this together. And thanks for taking the time to pass the hat for people that have had a difficult time. You know, I'm from this part of the country. I grew up in Texas and Oklahoma, spent a lot of time in Arkansas, and we now live in California. So we don't really look for thunderstorms, lightning, and tornadoes. We just wait for everything to shake under us so we can. And they talk about it like, you know, this is crazy. And we go out there. I mean, we every time something rattles a little bit, we look around. It's a truck going by or an earthquake. We don't know. But it's great to be back among people that we grew up with. Boy, are these crazy times right now or what? It's just, I spent several days in Detroit week before last. And I just have to tell you, it's astounding to me that is in America, because it feels like you're in another country when you're there. And thanks in no small part to Governor Beebe's foresight and initiatives here, you guys haven't felt the brunt of this like other parts of the country, and I'm so thankful that that's true. I know it's still tough, but I heard someone describe parts of Detroit like an urban prairie, and I didn't really know what that meant until I was there and saw tens of thousands of homes just abandoned. People just had to pull out and shut down. And I heard something really interesting when I was there. I did several town hall meetings there, and I went into an area of the city that is really tough. And in fact, they had to put up a 2-block perimeter around there to get me safely in and out of there, is what I was told. And I was talking to a lot of the homeless folks there, a lot of those that are living in the shelters and relying on the kitchens to eat each day. They told me something I'd never heard before. They said, Dr. Phil, our biggest fear is that the middle class poor are going to crowd us out. I said, what? They said the middle class poor. He said, these folks said, we have people now that were working in, you know, $70, $80, $100,000 a year jobs a few months ago that have lost everything and are now absorbing so many of the resources that were here, that we're getting the shelters that are full. We're getting the kitchens that are empty, and we're winding up on the streets. I mean, there are difficult things going on in America, and we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. But let me tell you, I was really proud to be invited to come here and speak to y'all. And I always want people to get something out of it when I stand up and talk. I mean, I want you to leave here with something that's a new awareness, a new tool, something that you can use in your life. And I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't draw a straight line, I can't add 2 and 2 and get 5 every time. I mean, but I do believe that there are certain skills that are just God-given. You just have gifts, and you need to find them and use them. And although I can't do any of those things, one thing that I've always thought was a gift in my life was the ability to understand why people do what they do and don't do what they don't do. I mean, sometimes when I look at folks, it's real clear to me what's going on that may not be clear to them at all. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about you guys leaving here with an edge an edge that you didn't have when you got here, an edge that you didn't have in leading your family, in parenting your children, in making the choices in your life that you have to make, because I think that is so important that we do that and that we are aware of what's going on. And when we talk about family, I have to tell you, I think you have to have two things to succeed with your family. And first is a whole lot of love. And I know you have that for your family. And the second is a really good plan. And particularly in this day and time, I think you have a really good plan, because I think families in America are under attack. I really do. I think the world is changing so fast that families are under attack. And by the way, I'm sure y'all get tabloids in Arkansas. We're not getting a divorce, okay? Robin and I have been getting a divorce for 12 years. I read one the other day that said that she had made a deal to get a divorce from me, and she was going to get $200 million. And I told Robin, come here. I said, if you go down to that courthouse and somebody give you $200 million, do it, and I'll meet you out back, okay? And she said, buddy, if you got $200 million I don't know about, I am getting a divorce. So, but you know, the world has changed with the internet, don't you think? The show that we had on the air today was about this Craigslist killer. And y'all have seen shows that we've done about these young girls that go on the internet and sell these erotic services and stuff. Our kids are getting bombarded with that. I mean, think about it. What teens are bombarded with today, all of these images of sex, drugs, alcohol, 500 TV channels, plus the internet. Did you think about how it was when we grew up? If you're anywhere near my age, which you probably can't guess because I've been bald since I was 12. But think about it. When we were growing up, there were 3 TV channels, right? And we were watching either I Love Lucy or Gunsmoke or Mary Tyler Moore Show, and they didn't show us all these things our kids are getting bombarded with today. Or you didn't have no TV, as she says. Oh, it's good to be back home. But really, our kids are getting bombarded with all these images we didn't see. I'm still waiting for Matt to kiss Kitty. He never did kiss Kitty. Then in the later years, she started looking a little rough. I started to understand. Just kidding, Amanda. Our kids don't know how to handle all of this stuff. It takes resolve to resist the noise in this day and time. And I've often said, you are not going to be the only voice in your children's ear, so you better be the best voice in your children's ear. You better be the voice that speaks with just a clarion focus about what is important for those kids, because they're getting so bombarded with all of this stuff. And now I worry we're going through these tough financial times, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I've talked to so many people that have either lost their job, lost their house, lost their 401k, and that's not fair, and it's not right. Or I've talked to so many people that are afraid of what is coming. They're afraid of what is happening. But you've got to figure out what's really important, and I promise you, it's not your job, it's not your house, it's not your car. And, you know, you can say, well, that's easy for you to say. You get to be Dr. Phil. But I tell you, I've been poor. I grew up that way. So much so that the summer before I started high school, I was homeless. I was going into those shelters. I was living on the streets in Kansas City. I've gone to bed hungry. I've gotten up every day wondering if we were going to have utilities that day, if we were going to be able to eat that day. I know what it's like. And it's not fair, and it's not right, but we've got to figure out what is important. We've got to set up our priorities. And, you know, I think there are laws of life. And I want to talk to you about laws of life tonight. Now, I wrote a book a long time ago I don't even think you can still buy it. It was like 8 or 9 years ago, called Life Strategies. Anybody here read Life Strategies? Yeah, right. So, what were the rest of you thinking? We'll take a short break, let you go down to Barnes & Noble. Now, let me tell you about this book. It was a good book that you didn't read. And in that book, I talked about the 10 laws of life. 10 laws of life. I didn't say guidelines. I didn't say, these are kind of tendencies that you need to be aware of. I said they were laws. And you think about law. When you're talking about law, that's something that happens every time, right? Now, what if there are laws of life that govern the outcomes that you have in your world? Wouldn't you want to know them? I mean, if a cop pulled you over and said, I'm giving you a ticket, you said, what for? I can't tell you. Well, tell me. Well, you were going too fast. Well, what's the speed limit? I can't tell you. Sign here. You wouldn't sit still for that. But yet, do you go through your life and you don't know what the laws are that govern what you're doing? Well, I talk about those 10 laws of life in the book you didn't read. And I'm going to tell you what one of them is tonight. I'm going to tell you what one of them is tonight. The other 9, you're just going to have to live without. No, you'll understand when I tell you. I wrote this first law of life when I was 16 years old. Now, I didn't know it at the time. I wasn't like a little Dr. Phil. But I look back on it now and realize that that was the first law of life that I understood. And I have to tell you a story so you understand this. I was living in Kansas City, and I worked at Hallmark Cards. And, I mean, Hallmark Cards is huge. I mean, there's this big concern there. And I went there, and I got a job. And they put me through all this testing. I mean, for like an entry-level job, I thought, and then I figured out later, I think I was like a human engineering guinea pig. Because they gave me like $10,000 more tests than I would ever earn while I worked there. But afterwards, they came and said, okay, we figured it out. We've got the perfect job that fits your personality. You're going to break stuff. I said, what? And they said, no, seriously, we have these dies, these engravings that we print the cards off of, and all the time they get stolen. So after we finish a run, we're going to break them so people can't bootleg them. So that's your job. I said, how many could they have? They had, I don't know, probably 20 warehouses about the size of the Clinton Library. I mean, we're talking 60-foot ceilings, block long, these things stacked floor to ceiling. And I'd come in every day, put these glasses on, put one of these things on the corner of a dumpster, hit it, get another one, hit it with a 5-pound sledgehammer, hit it. This was my job. I came in at 4, I worked till midnight. And they said, okay, now, Phil, we're not going to have a supervisor here to watch you and this other kid that they had chosen for this career. They said, are you mature enough to handle this without anybody here to watch you? I said, are you kidding me? You've seen my test. I can't believe you'd even ask me that. So after the second day, we decided we were going to build a hot rod. So every day from 4 till midnight, we worked on building this car. Now, you guys will appreciate this, okay? You women, just bear with me for a minute. Guys, I'm talking 66 Chevy Malibu, 396, 425 horse, count them, 3 Holley carburetors sitting on the manifold. If you roll this back a little bit and pop the clutch, you could pull the front wheels off the ground about that far. Now, you girls don't understand the importance of that. But doing a wheelie in a car is a rite of passage for a guy. Because we're running on straight testosterone, no gas, no nothing. Now, under the then theory that stupidity was a virtue, we would get off work at 12 o'clock every night and go race that car. We'd go find some other moron to race us for $5 so we could make some money off of our car. And one night over the Christmas holidays, we're doing just that. I got a friend in from out of town. He's got a friend in from out of town. We're going down Main Street in Kansas City at 2 o'clock in the morning at 120 miles an hour. I look in the rearview mirror, and there is a cop on our bumper. And when I say on our bumper, you couldn't have got a gum wrapper between the two. And he pulls us over, and I'm thinking, oh, my. He is going to write tickets till sunup. Well, as it turned out, he wasn't much into paperwork. This guy was mad. And let me tell you, he opened that cop car door and got out. And look, I'm no minnow. This boy was huge. I mean, he had his own weather systems. He was so big. And it was stormy. And I'm thinking, this is about as bad as it could get. About that time, my friend's buddy panics, slithers out the back window, and runs off between the buildings. I'm going, oh, my God. He comes up. We're standing like crows on a clothesline. He comes to my buddy, who is so dumb, it would be totally indiscreet for me to say his name. Steve Drummond. He walks over to him, picks him up off the ground with one hand, says, I'm going to ask you one time, what's the name of that boy that run off? Steve leans forward, right in his face, and says, yeah, well, his name was Sam Sausage. What of it? He hit him so hard, I thought it broke my nose. He just hit him and dropped him to the pavement, stepped over to me and grabs a hold of me, yanks me up. I'm going to ask you one time, what's the name of that boy that run off? I'm looking at Steve on the ground. Here's the problem. I don't know his name. I just met him a few minutes ago. I don't know his name. And I said, sir, if I may, I don't know that young man's name for sure, but I can promise you it ain't Sam Sausage. Okay, now, at that point, I wrote life law number 1. You either get it or you don't. You either get it or you don't. Steve Drummond, who's kissing the pavement, he don't get it. I'm standing up, still have all my dental work and facial features. I get it. Don't you know people in your life who don't get it? Just think about it for a minute. We'll take a pause. Make a list. Let me suggest, I don't know, start with your in-laws. You know what I'm talking about. People that don't get it, they just go through life and they just kind of stumble along and they don't know what's going on. People that just don't get it. What I worry about, and what I want to say to you guys tonight, is I don't want you to be among those people who just don't get it. So what's the it? What's the it? You say, all right, don't be one of those people that just doesn't get it. You know, what is the it that you need to get? Well, you know, I've talked about the fact that, you know, life has ups and downs. And like right now, for example, we're in a real down cycle in this economy. I mean, I don't think we've hit bottom yet, just to be honest with you. Yeah, I've seen unemployment skyrocketing throughout this country. I've seen 401ks disappearing, millions and trillions of dollars lost in the stock market. People that planned on retiring when they hit 65, it's not going to happen. We're going to have to work longer. We're going to have to live smarter. We're going to have to live smaller. We're going to have to be more efficient. You know, an economy based on consumption, you're in acquisition. In an economy that's based on saving and being smart, you know, we have a whole different value system. We do different things. But here's the big thing that I worry about. Being in a tough economy, being in a tough marriage, being in a tough family system, have you ever noticed that things that get bad, they do get better with time? You know, the economy's that way. We roller coaster down. We never know how low it's going to get, but it does turn back up. There are cycles to this. The real tragedy in a tough time is not losing your job, your car, or your home. The real tragedy is if you lose your family. You talk to family law practitioners, they tell you that the number one thing that they hear complaints when people come in to file a divorce is they're fighting about money. They're fighting about money. So if the number one pressure is money, and we're in the toughest economic times we've seen in a generation, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to start seeing the meltdown of the marriage, the meltdown of the family. I have seen domestic violence go up 30, 40% in a month. in communities around the United States. Now, you've seen, I've done shows about that. The real tragedy is if during this time you turn on one another. You start blaming one another. You get distracted and you stop parenting your children. You get so focused on that when it's over, your family didn't survive. I think about it like being out in the ocean. You're in a boat and it sinks. And so you're just there bobbing in the ocean. You know help is on the way. You know they're looking for you. You know, the Coast Guard's out there, and they've got volunteers. You know, everybody's searching the area you're in. The question is, are you going to be there when they get there? They're coming, but will you be there when they get there? And what you have to do is you have to stay afloat until they get there. And a little piece of wood float by, and you grab it. You say, well, I want a boat, not a little piece of wood. No, you take the little piece of wood, right? You do what you have to stay afloat. I've had men asking me, said, Dr. Phil, I'm an engineer. Only job I can get is at a hardware store or a fast food place. That's beneath me. I can't do that. Yes, you can. That's a little piece of wood floating by. You grab that. If you put $100 a week on the table or $200 a week on the table, that's $200 more than you had if you sat home feeling sorry for yourself. You don't do that. If you're going to be one that gets it, you have to understand the it is all about your marriage. It's all about your family. It's all about your kids. It's all about the things that make this country what it is. We've got to stay focused on marriage and family, and you are the leaders. And we have to keep this stuff in perspective. The power of language is huge. I was talking to a woman backstage the other day. Robin, you were standing there, and we were getting ready to go on the show, and she was just there with somebody was going to be on the show, and I said, oh, how you doing? I introduced myself. I got to talking to her, and she said, well, you know, my husband's lost his job, and I'm going to have to go to work, and I just have to tell you, our life's just horrible. The power of language. We say catastrophic things. We say it's horrible. It's a disaster. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. You know, one of my specialties when I went through school was behavioral medicine. We dealt with controlling chronic pain and disease. And I had the privilege, and I say the privilege because it was, of working with children in the burn unit at Parkland. And I would see little kids that would have full depth burns over 70, 80% of their body. 8, 10 years old. That's horrible. That's catastrophic. Not losing your job at the Acme Assembly Plant. You can get another job. You're smart. You might lose your house. You might lose your car. I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm not trying to trivialize it. I'm not saying it doesn't matter because it does. But let's face it. Your phone didn't ring and somebody say, I'm sorry to tell you, but your child has brain cancer. Your phone didn't ring and they said, wait a minute. Your teenager that was out driving tonight had an accident and they didn't make it. Is it a big deal? Yeah, but let's keep it in perspective. You know, people talk about this is like the Great Depression. This isn't like the Great Depression. It isn't anything like Great Depression. You see the polls now, and they say 63% of the people say they're spending less on entertainment. %46 say they go to movies less often. 56% say they eat out less. 25% have made the sacrifice of cutting back on their gambling. 28% are drinking less whiskey. How will we bear up? Now, listen, I don't mean to trivialize this, and I'm telling you, like I say, I've been poor. I've been poor. When I got through being homeless, my dad and I moved into an apartment and had no utilities for 2.5 months because we couldn't afford the deposit. It got dark at 4:30. It got cold throughout the entire day and night. I understand that. I'm not making light of it. But let's keep it in perspective. And you got a problem here. If you aren't living smaller, and I know the economy here is probably leading compared to a lot of the country, but you need to do things preventatively. We have raised a generation of entitled children. Now just fess up. Fess up. I know Robin spoiled our two boys. I'm kidding, of course. Ms. Beebe, is she smiling? Yeah. Yeah, I think they're working against me here. No, think about it. I've talked to so many parents who feel guilty because this last Christmas they had to really cut back. On birthdays, they've not been able to do as much. Got summer coming up. We'll be able to take the vacation that we'd planned or the kind that we took last year. Probably not. You probably shouldn't, actually. But I want to tell you, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Look, this is a teachable moment in these children's lives. Do they always get everything they want? They're going to get out into the real world, and the day's going to come where you're not there to spend money you don't have on things they don't need to make them happy until that wears out. And there is a silver lining to this. This is a forced slowdown in a life that, in my opinion, has been spinning too fast in the laser lane. It isn't in the fast lane. Our world is in the laser lane. We are moving so fast. And you know what? We may be forced to live smaller, to live simpler. Maybe we hearken back to a different time. Maybe you can't buy your child that video game that they would go in the other room, slam the door, and spend 15 hours a day playing with over the weekend. And you know what might happen? Necessity is the mother of invention. If they don't have that video game to spend 15 hours on Saturday and 15 hours on Sunday playing, they might just come stumbling out of that room into the sunshine. They might actually go in the backyard and throw the ball around with you. They may go with you to walk the dog. This may be forcing us back to focus on some more fundamental relationship things that I think we've really lost with our children. So I don't wish economic turndown on anybody, not as a community, not as an individual. But since it's happening, is this a time to really say, you know what? Maybe we're going to have a staycation instead of a vacation. You know, vacation means vacate the area. Well, maybe you don't have the money to do that this year. So maybe you get inventive with your children. You do things. You require them to entertain themselves. Can you imagine? And when you think of the rules of the game, I'm not sure that everything that's happening right now is necessarily bad. Think back, you know, I was just in Detroit and I was talking to these people who are losing their jobs making some really big old cars, like over at the Hummer plant. I don't want to have a Hummer franchise right now. But can you imagine how people felt that were working at the buggy whip factory when cars came along? They're working over at the buggy whip factory. And they're saying, oh, come on now, y'all need to bail us out. I mean, we're not selling many buggy whips. You need to give us some money here. You need to bail us out and let us keep our jobs over here at the buggy whip factory. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's like the Hummer factory. I got nothing against Hummers. If you got a Hummer, that's great if you can afford it. $4 a gallon. I mean, but maybe it's just a healthy adjustment in some ways. And if we stay afloat, if we hang on to that little piece of wood till things cycle around, we'll be there. But I'm going to make you a promise. And you can write this down. What's the date today? This is the 27th? I knew that. I want you to write this down. March 27th, 2010. No, not 09. 2010. March 27th, 2010. I want you to go home tonight, get your April. All right. April. This is April 27th. It's been a really long weekend. No, but I want you to go home and get in your day timer, turn to the correct month, and write down on that day next year. Because I'm going to promise you something. On this day next year, your life is going to be better or worse than it is tonight. Okay, no, listen. Oh, thanks for that. No, listen. Your life is going to be better or worse than it is tonight. It is not going to be the same. You are going to be fatter or skinnier. You're going to be richer or poorer. You're going to be married or divorced. Your kids are going to be in trouble or making progress. A year from tonight, your life is going to be better or worse than it is tonight. It will not be the same. It won't. It will not be the same. And a huge part of this, and I have believed this for the last 30 years. A huge part of this is a function of the choices you make between now and then. The choices you make between now and then. And let me assure you, and you're going to hate it when I tell you this, you're going to hate it. You cannot not choose. Because you may be sitting there thinking, oh yeah, I hear that, but I don't want to choose. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it. Don't want to do it. Don't want to talk about it. Well, sorry, you already did. You cannot not choose. I mean, think about coming up to a big old crossroads out in the middle of the country. You're standing in the middle of the crossroads. You can say, all right, I can go straight ahead. I can go back. I can turn this way or I can turn this way. You can just say, oh, I don't want to choose. Well, that's your fifth choice. You can stand right there in the middle of the intersection, let life just run you smooth over. But you cannot not choose. You have to choose. And a big part of where you are this time next year is going to be a function of those choices. The economy of your family, you personally, your health, every aspect of it. And I want to tell you something that my dad passed away a number of years ago. There are actually a few people here tonight that knew my father because they've come up and spoken to me. But he had a defective valve in his heart, and it was shutting down. They couldn't operate. They just knew he was going to pass away soon. And I've always told people, in my practice, when I worked with people, I said, look, don't take for granted the people that you love in your life. You may not have them past today. You may not have them past the end of this sentence. And I would always tell people, if there are things left unsaid, if there are things left undone with the people you care about in your life, take care of that before the end of the day. Go do it. If there are things you need to say to your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, take the initiative. Go to them. Call them. Write them. Do whatever you have to do. Because when they're gone, they're gone. And I thought, you know, you really need to practice what you preach. And when I knew my dad was not long for this world, I thought, I'm going to practice what I preach. I went and sat with him. And, you know, he was a character. I said, you know, well, so how is the old heart doing? He said, well, don't buy me any green bananas, I'll tell you that. I said, oh, thanks, Dad. And we talked for a long, long time. And it was during one of those talks that he said something to me that I will never forget. He said, you know, as I stand here having progressed through my life, and I get here at what I know is the end of my life, and I look back over it, I can see those critical choices I made along the way. I can see them. I can see, you know, my dad was a terrible alcoholic. And there was so much strife between he and I, between he and my mother. I mean, it was just all kinds of problems along the way. Not a pretty situation. And he says, I look back and I look at those choices I made. And in retrospect, at the end of my life, looking back, I can see what they are. And I was so proud of him. In the last 2 years of his life, he completely quit drinking, just quit. And he had a PhD in psychology, but he went and enrolled in the Dallas Theological Seminary and got his Master's of Divinity and began teaching at his church. And it was very, very effective in what he did. But he told me, he said, you know, as I look back, I see these choices I made, you know, like choices to get married, choice to start drinking, choice to do this, choices to do that. And he said, I can see them with such great clarity now. And he said, I want to tell you something about your life. In the course of your life, you're going to have the opportunity to influence a lot of people. He said, I don't know how, but I know to the core of my soul that you will. And at this time, I had not written a book. I had not been on the Oprah show. I had not been on television. I hadn't done any of those things. He said, I know you are going to be in a position to influence, guide, teach, inspire, whatever you call, so many people. And if you want to give them a gift, take it from me as I sit here at the end of my life. Help them to recognize the gravity of those choices when they occur. When they occur. Not at the end of their life when they look back and say, I can see now how this choice caused that, this choice caused this choice caused that. Have them to get a wake-up call and understand the gravity of those choices, so when they make them, they recognize how far-reaching they can be. What a gift it would be if somebody had come to me in my 20s or 30s or 40s and shaken me awake and said, don't just go through life, think about the impact of your choices. You guys have probably heard me say a million times, when you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. When you choose the behavior, there are consequences that follow. That's true of our government. It's true of ourselves. It's true of our children. You should tell your children that, and I know you do. You say, if you get in a car with somebody that's been drinking, when you choose that behavior, you can choose the consequence of ending your life or someone else's. If you choose to become sexually active, then you can choose the consequence of getting pregnant or having a disease. You can choose those consequences. We have to teach people to understand the gravity of their choices. And let me connect this up for you on this day in April. There is something that I believe is so tied to our choices. I hope you've heard me talk about it at some point along the way, or read something I've written, or an interview I've given. But it's a concept that I think is so important, and that is the concept of your personal truth. Now, I'm not talking to this room right now. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. If there are 1,500 people in this room, let me tell you there are 1,500 personal truths in this room. And it's the personal truth is what you believe about yourself when no one is looking, no one is listening. You don't have your social mask on. You aren't out there projecting. It's what you truly believe about yourself in your most innermost personal, quiet, private reality. What do you believe about you? Now, why is that so important that I'm taking this time to talk about it? Because I believe that we generate the results in this life that we believe we deserve. Think about what I just said. If you don't hear anything else I say tonight, hear this. We generate the results in this life that we believe we deserve. Not what we tell people we deserve, not what social mass says we deserve, but what we believe we deserve. If your personal truth is damaged, you will generate results in this life to match that damaged truth. If you think you are second class, if you think that you are not as good as you should be, as you can be, as other people are, you will generate results consistent with that belief. You will live down to your label. You will live down to your truth. And you will model that for your children. If I see some guy stumbling along the sidewalk and he's all out of shape and overweight and haggard and poorly groomed and stumbling along, without ever talking to him, there's one thing I know for sure. That's the existence he believes he deserves. And we always say, you know, our kids don't listen. You need to not worry so much about the fact that your kids don't listen. You need to worry about the fact that they always watch. What do you model for them? If you have a job that you don't like, and you go to work every day and you come home, how was your day? Horrible. What'd you do? Nothing. What are you going to do tomorrow? Same thing. They go, oh, great. I can't wait to grow up and sell out. You can't do that. You can't do that. And see, here's the thing about personal truth. You can't hide it. It shines through. I used to do work in the courtroom. I worked as a jury consultant. That's how I met Oprah, actually. I was working on her mad cow case up in Amarillo. And, I used to do jury selection, and, I'd watch the jury and give the lawyers input. People used to say, well, Dr. Phil, can you really tell what the jury's thinking without talking to them? I say, well, yeah. 7% of all communication is verbal. The other 93% is nonverbal. You just scream things out without saying it. You're screaming things out without saying it right now. I look at y'all. You all make a statement. Everybody here makes a statement. And I always have fun. I particularly watch the men because I have this commonality with men. And, there are different guys that approach things differently. Like, we're here tonight, and it's kind of a relaxed situation. But there are some guys that walk in, they've got on a three-piece suit, really good haircut, crisp white shirt and a tie, and it makes the statement, I'm incredible. And then there are people here that look like they woke up 15 minutes before this started, dove in the laundry basket, came out dressed, said, let's go see the bald guy. They're just a cool breeze blowing through the room. Is one better than another? No, but you make a statement. But here's the thing. You've got to own the statement. I'll never forget. I was at the airport, LaGuardia, in New York several years ago with our oldest son, Jay. And he wasn't very old then. He was like 10 or 12. And I used to take him with me sometimes if he had a break from school or whatever. And I was in New York. This was before 9/11. You could go down the concourse and all. I was in the American terminal down there on the end. I don't know if you've ever been there. But it was bad weather. I mean, it's snowing. Flights are backed up, and that crowd's jamming in there. There's like this flight's on top of that flight, and this flight's on top of that flight. And pretty soon that crowd starts to mutate into a mob. It looks like the bar scene from Star Wars. Wah, wah, wah. And so we're watching people. So he and I are standing over here, and I enjoy this. I just kind of watch people. And I see this guy come walking up. And he's in a gray suit. He's got on a gray shirt. He has on a gray tie. He has gray hair. He has on gray glasses. He's carrying a gray briefcase. He walks up, and he's just kind of standing over there. It looks like Barney Fife in a suit. Had to be, this guy's wound up tight. I mean, he had to be an accountant, no question about it. I mean, you talk about anal retentive. He looked like he had been potty trained at gunpoint. I mean, this guy's just like, he's just over here. He's just all standing over there. And so I'm telling Jay, check out Barney over here, So he's looking at him. And so I look back, and here come these three guys down the concourse. They're just huge guys, and they're walking in lockstep, just kind of goose-stepping down the concourse. And they've got on leather jackets with the sleeves cut out, jean jackets, tattoos and piercings on everything you can write on or knock a hole in. They've all three got mohawks, and they've got like 7 colors in the mohawk, and they're stomping down there, and they catch Barney looking. Barney's looking over there like that, and they just wheel on him, and they come over there, what are you looking at, buddy? Now, I usually mind my own business. That's not true. I don't know. I don't know why I even said that. But they turn in, what are you looking at, Barney? I couldn't help it. I just walked over there, and they said, he's looking at you, you freak. What do you think? I said, did you get up this morning and put 7 colors in your mohawk because you wanted to be under the radar? Are you kidding me? You wanted people to look, so he's looking, so tell it walking. And I hear this, code 7 on the concourse, code 7 on the concourse. Jay comes over there and says, Dad, I think they're paging you again. Now, all right, what's the point? I don't know. I just wanted to tell you about that. Now, here's the point. There is a point to this. If you make a statement, own it. I mean, own it. I got nothing. I got nothing against somebody wearing a mohawk. I wear a reverse mohawk. It's okay. But if that's the statement you're going to make, own it. What statement are you making to your kids? And whatever it is, you need to own it. It is a choice. It is a conscious choice that will reflect what happens between now and this time next year. If you're out of a job right now and you are feeling shame, you are going to show your kids how to live in shame. If you're a husband and you've lost your job, so now you're Mr. Mom, and you don't think that's okay, you think that's beneath you, you will show your kids that. If you withdraw in shame, if you shut down, if you feel bad about who you are, you will teach your kids that. This is a teachable moment in America. This is a time to show these kids we get through good times and bad. If money's tight, I don't start yelling at your mother. We don't fuss and fight in front of you. We don't call each other names. We don't yell and scream. Let me tell you something about kids. Kids have a unique ability to fill all blanks in to their detriment. If there's something going on between mom and dad, you guys are yelling and fighting, fussing in front of them, they're going to figure out how that's their fault. You may be fighting about money. You may be fighting about the $4,000 payment you need for your mortgage. But those kids, they will figure out and go sit on their bed and say, you know what? If I hadn't needed $11.40 yesterday for school pictures, Mom and Dad wouldn't be fighting. You fight in front of those kids, it changes who they are. Don't do that. Don't exhibit this pressure getting to you. Talk about it. Talk with your kids about it. Don't put it on them, but let them know there are good times and bad. We're going to all have to make sacrifices here. Give them something to do. Let them be a part of the solution. If your personal truth is damaged where you feel like you are second-class citizen, then do something about that. Get counseling. Pray about it. Get help. Talk to a trusted friend. Do something. But don't live with a damaged personal truth, because you seal the fate of your children when you do that. You seal their fate. Talk to them about these things. I got 2 rules about this. You don't ever load kids up with adult issues, and you don't ever give them responsibilities that they don't have any influence over. Makes them feel helpless. And let me assure you, if you love your children, and I know you do, take care of their mother and father. Take care of their base. Take care of their family. You can't give away what you don't have. We need mothers, not martyrs. And there's sometimes you just got to say no. Now, Oprah swears I will never convince women that it's okay to take care of themselves instead of their children, but I keep telling her I'm going to do it. But you really do need to take care of yourself, or you can't give away what you don't have. I talked to a woman one time, and she just looked haggard, and I said, so where do you live? And she said, in a white Chevy Suburban. I said, what do you mean? She said, I got 3 kids in 3 different schools at 3 different ages, and I have a job, and I get up in the morning, and I start, and I go, and I go, and I go, and I just fall in bed, and I'm asleep before my head hits the pillow, and I'm up an hour before everybody else. I said, you know what? Take a deep breath. I said, do me a favor. I said, why don't you just go home tomorrow at like 2 o'clock, lock the door, take the phone off the hook, get you the dumbest magazine you can find, and just take a bubble bath for you. She looked at me like I was insane. She said, well, Dr. Phil, my mother would turn over in her grave. I said, oh, so now we got dead people running our lives. Is that what you're telling me? I said, I'll tell you what, do it again the next day. She can turn back over. So we'll spin her like a rotisserie chicken. I don't care. But take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. And that's what, I mean, I really, really want you to do that. Now, I have one other thing that I want to talk to you about before I leave. But I promised to take some questions from the audience tonight. And I'm not sure how, do you know how we're doing this, Dean? Dean knows how we're doing this. So let's do that, and then I'm going to talk to you about that one thing that I think is so important.
We have microphones, I believe. We have 3 or 4 volunteers with microphones. So if you have questions for Dr. Phil, please raise your hand, and then someone will bring a microphone. I'll recognize you, and you don't have a microphone. We have a question right up here, Bob.
All right, stand up. Stand up so we can see you.
I can't stand up.
Okay, well, just speak up then.
And ma'am, before we start, let me ask you this, ma'am. For the sakes, we get a lot of questions in. Please don't make a statement. Just please ask a question.
Dr. Phil, I would love you dearly. I already do. But if you would find a doctor that would help us with Lou Gehrig's disease,
Okay.
I would thoroughly appreciate it.
All right, thank you for that. And Teresa will make a note of that. And really, we take these requests and we try to find resources for things
All right.
like that.
Will someone else raise their hand? Let's see. Let's be right here, Bob, right here in the middle.
Okay, stand up if you would and kind of work your way. There you go.
What is the short answer for how you change your personal truth?
Okay, did y'all hear the question back there? Okay, now, she said, Dr. Phil, how is it you're so handsome? Okay, maybe that wasn't the question. She said, what's the short answer to how you change that personal truth? Let me tell you, and I speak from personal experience about this, because growing up with an alcoholic father in a particularly poor home, you compare yourself to the other kids, and you come out feeling real bad about who you are. And what you have to do is decide what your priorities are. What is important to you? I mean, is it your family? Is it your children? Is it getting your education? Is it whatever it is that's important to you? And you really have to search your heart for what your God-given gifts are. And you have to find a way. Your challenge in this world is to identify what your God-given gifts are and find a way to apply those in this world in a way that fills you up. And I can promise you, if you have emptiness in you, the best way to fill it is to give away what you feel you most need. If you feel like you're alone and lonely, then you need to go to people that are more alone and lonely than you and give to them what you wish you were getting. If you feel like you just aren't making the impact in this world that you need to start at the bottom and start working your way up, and nothing is beneath you. That's the whole thing about personal truth. People that are really secure about who they are willing to do anything it takes to fill themselves up to the point that they can be all of who they can be. But the point is, you can't let days turn into weeks and weeks turn into months. You need to do something active to change it. And if you're finding that you're not getting there, then get help. And you don't have to have a lot of money to go to some high-dollar psychologist or psychiatrist. Get pastoral counseling. Join a support group. Do something different than what you're doing. That's what you absolutely have to do. Okay, what else?
Question. Got a question right here.
Okay, stand up, please.
If you had to say one thing, what could you get society, what would you say to society to make them understand what mental illness is and that it's just as important as physical?
Well, I can tell you that as Spirit said when she was introducing me, one of my goals when I started doing the Dr. Phil show was to deal with what I call the silent epidemics in America. And one of the things that I think is so tragic is that there is still a sense of shame about mental illness. You know, there was a time in America before Dorothea Dix had the courage to do what she did to change things, that we took people that were mentally ill and we locked them up. We chained them up. We warehoused them, and in many respects we still do. And what I try and get society to understand is that we don't know everything that we need to know about mental illness. Sometimes a talking therapy can do it. Sometimes you need biochemical replacement treatment through medications or whatever. And what I try to do is get people to understand that there is a real superficial shell over this. Like people say, Dr. Phil, how do you get people to come on your show to talk about their marriage problems? Well, we got a 50% divorce rate in America. So look to your left. Look to your right. One of you is divorced. And one of you is headed towards divorce. Okay? So, and there's just a lot of people that say, I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed. Well, okay, Teresa's sitting next to you. She's headed for divorce because she's not married. So she might, no, I'm actually a fan of marriage. Robin and I have been married 32 years, going on 33. And, I think that I just want to keep doing shows about it, keep talking about it, keep interviewing about it, keep pushing about it. And frankly, when I started doing the Dr. Phil show, actually even when I started doing this on Oprah, there were a lot of critics in the profession. They said, we're not sure you ought to be doing that on television. And even the critics said, I'm not sure you ought to be doing it, but he does do his homework and he does get it right. Just not sure you ought to be doing it on television. And I think that changed after the first year and the second year and the third year and the next year until I'm very proud to say that a year ago, the American Psychological Association awarded me the Presidential Citation, saying that I'd done more to open the dialogue and make accessible information about mental health than anybody had ever done before. And that's one of the things that I was most proud of, because my colleagues, my peers said, you know what? He's opening up the dialogue, and this is a good thing. So I just think we just have to be open about it. It doesn't mean you need to walk up and say, hi, I'm Betty, and I'm schizophrenic.
Got a question back here,
You don't have
Dr.
to
Phil.
do that, but you need to stay open about it. Yeah.
Hold up.
Dr. Phil, while you're looking for a doctor for the Lou Gehrig's disease, could you also find one for the sarcoidosis, the lung disease?
Do I look like a referral service? We take those requests and we put up information on our website to try to find that. But yeah, okay, yes, right here, stand up. You bet.
You might repeat that question because you didn't have a mic.
Yeah, I got it. He was saying, what do you do when you're bombarded by this negative information all the time? Because there is so much negative. And here's the thing. Like we see all this stuff about murders and all. The murder rate in America is actually down over the last 3 years. You say, well, whoa, what do you mean? We see so much about it. We live in a 24/7 news cycle now, and we do get bombarded with it. And I tell you what, you have to understand, like these cable news cycles, they're 30-minute cycles. So if there's been a murder, they're going to cover that 48 times that day. There's a point at which we truly need to turn that off. There's truly a point that we just need to say, I'm going to quit doing that. And the statistics are, particularly right now during this economic crisis, viewership of news is up 46% in America. And here's a startling thing about why I say you need to turn it off. Right after 9/11, I did an Oprah show right after 9/11 with Mrs. Bush and Oprah and a group of kids. You know what those kids said? They said they thought all of the buildings had been knocked down. The reason being that every channel they turned on, there was a different camera angle, a different perspective, a different point of view, a different speaker, a different anchor. They thought all the buildings had been knocked down. And that was just out of the mouths of babes, how it can just really, really load you. But you need to counteract it. You need to turn it off, and you need to focus on the positives in your life. Your health, your marriage, your family, the good things in this life. But that's just not going to be covered on the news cycle. You don't ever hear a news anchor say, well, at 3rd and Elm today, nothing happened. There was no crash today, and 7 puppies were born a block away. Yeah, it doesn't sell. If it bleeds, it leads. So that's what they do, right? Okay.
Let's see, we got one right here.
Hi. What I would like to know exactly, as an advocate for children's right and dealing with school violence, what advice can you give in recent lieu of children that have committed suicide regarding school violence? What advice can we give to the children that are planning on doing that, and how can we stop that and get officials to do something about the matter and just blowing it off?
Well, I have a very distinct position about that, I can tell you for sure, and it is this. When we have this violence in school, when we have kids being picked on, we have kids being bullied. You know, my parents grew up where, you know, kids are kids, let them work it out. That's bad advice. That's bad advice. If your child is being picked on in school, if your child is having violence, if they are getting assaulted, if they are getting just really insulted and bullied, you know, this used to happen on the playground when the teacher wasn't looking, right? But again, with the internet, there's Facebook, there are school sites where it's the, you know, the Johnson High School site, where people can go on there anonymously and badger a child, pick on a child. Teen depression and teen suicide is a serious, serious issue. You have to know what the warning signs are, and they're on drphil.com under teen suicide and teen depression. They're there in video. They are there in checklist form. And you have to talk to your child about that. You don't want to run into the school like your hair's on fire screaming at the teachers. What you need to do is partner with them. Let them know that you believe that your child is withdrawing because they are being picked on or they are being bullied, and you need to call them into action. Let me tell you something about teachers. Teachers don't become teachers for the money. Teachers become teachers because they are loving, caring, compassionate, and dedicated people. They want these children to do well. They want these children to succeed. They will partner with you if you approach them to partner with them. What they don't want is some hysterical mother coming in there and accusing them of being negligent because little Billy is being picked on. Okay? They don't want that, but they don't see that. You need to help them to see that. Partner with your teachers, and we can turn this around.
Okay, we got time, I think, for
One more.
Okay, let's do it right over here, ma'am. You, whoever you pick out. Yeah, the lady's standing up, so let's...
Pass it down. There you go.
Hi, Dr. Phil. I just have a question. You talked a lot about how parents should be during economic downturns, but how do you think children, especially my age, older children, should help out with the family in a time like this?
Well, here's the thing. You know, the truth is that parents have a natural tendency to feel guilty if they think their child is having to make sacrifices, because we all want our kids to do better than we did. We all want our children to be safe, comfortable, and secure. The best thing you can do in terms of upstream management is talk to your parents. You can say, you know what, I get that we're having a problem. Look, I understand that. I know I was going to go away to private college, but if I need to spend a year here working part-time and going to junior college, my life isn't over. I'll be okay. I get that I have to go with the times. I really do get that. I tell you, it means so much to parents. I mean, wouldn't it mean so much to all of you if your parents came and said, what can I do to help, instead of making demands for a $175 pair of jeans? I mean, if your kids get it, it is such a gift to your parents to share that with them. Open the dialogue. Talk about it. It will mean everything in the world to them, I promise. Okay? Let me say one last thing to you guys in closing here. There is one thing that I think will make more difference in your life and has made more difference in my life than any other single thing. And that is to make sure that you in your life and your children in theirs have a passion. Truly have something in your life that excites you. It lights you up. It makes you want to get up in the morning. It causes you to get energized and have a focus. And if you've gotten to a point in your life where you don't have that, do not accept that from yourself. Do not accept that from yourself. There's got to be something in this life that you are excited about, that you're passionate about. All of these students over here that I met backstage from the public service school, it's so obvious that they have a passion, they have a vision, they have something that they're moving towards. Our oldest son, Jay, wrote a book called for teenagers, and he called on them to answer the question why a certain group was involved with drugs and another group was not. It was really interesting what he found out. When he asked these kids that were on drugs why, you know what they said? We got no reason not to. When they asked these kids that weren't on drugs, he thought there was going to be a strong moral compass. He thought there was going to be some real high calling that they had. That wasn't it at all. They said, I'm just selfish. Drugs do not fit what I want. I want a car when I'm 16. I want to get on the debate team. I want to get on the basketball team. I want to go to this college or that one. And those drugs don't fit in for me. They had something they were passionately in the pursuit of. And if your kids are not passionately in the pursuit of something, then you need to help them find that. If your kids have a goal, if they have a purpose, if they have a currency in their life, they will not be sucked into that world. And again, your personal truth, you have to model that. If you're just going through life kind of putting one foot in front of the other, if you're one of those people that say, oh, we used to have a lot of fun. I was reading an article the other day that said if we're alive in the year 2015, our life expectancy could be as high as 125. Now think about that. If you're 45 years old, you got 80 to go. You got 80 to go. And if you're one of those people who say, oh, yeah, we used to have a lot of fun, we used to be crazy, you got a long 80 years ahead of you. You got to get excited about something. You got to find some passion in your life. That's what I think is so very, very important. I'm very passionate about what, and I probably look like a crazy guy up here waving my arms around, but I'm excited about what I do. I love my job. I love doing the Dr. Phil show. I love coming here and talking to you. I am passionate about this. I don't want somebody to hear me talk and give me a little golf clap and say, nice speech, Phil. I want you to hear me talk and say, he's right. I don't want to be one of those people that doesn't get it. I want to do something in my life. Next year on this day, I'm going to look back and say, he's right. I made the choices and I changed my future. I changed my life for me and for my children. Guys, thank you. Thank you so much.